But I know as someone who has mobility issues that there are many, many businesses that don't understand their responsibilities. So we need to have funding for the education. Yes, it's there, but we need a transparent implementation process against a public timeline so that we can see, we have something to measure. How are we making progress on this? So first point, educate about the AMA, develop a transparent public timeline with measurable accomplishments that we can work towards that's funded. And then in terms of accessible buildings, not only do we have to make our buildings more carbon neutral, so funding for the implementation of moving towards accessibility and carbon neutrality at the same time. Again, our basic platform of green jobs for a sustainable future would address this concern by ensuring that our buildings become more carbon neutral as well as more accessible. And yes, the Green Party and the Green MLA will work hard in a collegial manner with whatever existing parties are ruling to ensure that we implement something called a citizens' assembly process. We have 2 years to listen twice as much as we speak, and the Green Party is committed to listening and implementing what you've already told us you need. Thank you.
Thank you. That's time. The next to respond to the question, you have 2 minutes, is Douglas Lamont of the Manitoba Liberal Party.
Yeah, thank you very much. Look, it is very disappointing. The AMA has not been enforced, and it's also been weakened. So what we need to do is to strengthen it in a number of ways. First of all, by making sure it applies to all building construction, inside and out. In speaking with major disability advocates, there was an individual who helped actually make sure the disability was part of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, who we met with. He said we have to start integrating universal design into the design at the beginning. It should be baked in and be something that's taken as a given. Because too often what happens is people will say, we're an architect or an engineer, will design a building, and then they'll come along and say, okay, now you have to put something onto it to make it accessible. It needs to be accessible from the get-go. The other thing about it is that regulation is important, but we also need to make sure that there's resources there. There are going to be, one of the reasons there's going to be pushback is if people feel that they can't afford it. So we have to create grants and funds to actually make sure that businesses, to help them comply, to give them an advantage so that there's actually, it makes it even more worth their while to comply, and to make sure that this is happening. And again, to make sure that this is all happening, that we're consulting to see what is happening, what isn't on an ongoing basis with the community, to make sure that what is being promised is actually being implemented. And that's our commitment.
Thank you. And that's within time. The next to respond to the question, and you have 2 minutes, is Rochelle Squires from the Progressive Conservative Party of Manitoba.
Thank you very much, and one of the commitments that I'm prepared to make today is that within 30 days, a newly re-elected PC government would release the 5-year report that was undertaken. As part of the Act, we must conduct a 5-year review, and we will release that, as well as within 180 days, we will provide a full status update on the implementation and the successes of those 5 standards, which include the 3 that were fully implemented under our government over the last few years, which include the Accessible Customer Service Standard, the Accessible Employment Standard, and the Accessible Information and Communication Standard, as well as I would provide a full update on the 2 accessibility standards that are currently in works right now. One is for the transportation, and of course one is for the design of public outdoor spaces. One of the things that we heard loud and clear from everyone in community was that we needed to help others, whether it be public businesses, retail stores, or other entities, to adapt and modernize to make their place of business more accessible. That is why we launched 2 years ago the Manitoba Accessibility Fund, which is a $20 million commitment that is being maintained by the Winnipeg Foundation and other partners. And each year there's at least almost $1 million that can go towards projects on an application base. This year we were oversubscribed. not surprisingly, which is helping raise awareness from all the applicants about their need and the law to modernize to standards. And we were able to select 42 organizations to receive grants that will modernize their space, and that is following the inaugural year's launch of 30 organizations throughout the province of Manitoba that were supported with $756,000 to make their spaces more accessible. More work to do, and certainly giving that commitment that we would do it.
Stop there. You're right on the bell. You're right on the bell. Thank you. And the final candidate to speak to this question, our first priority section, is Nahani Fontaine from the NDP. You have 2 minutes.
The Manitoba NDP were really proud to introduce and pass the Accessibility for Manitobans Act back in 2013. It illustrates the commitment of the NDP to work with and ensure that, again, we have a Manitoba that is accessible and that every Manitoban can thrive and has equal opportunities. And so, like the folks that we've heard from, we are equally disappointed that the AMA has been effectively watered down or weakened by the current PC government. One of the things that they did was that they weakened the standards from regulations. So employers with 50 staff, now it goes down to 24 staff. You know, Manitoba has a best practice, and that is through the AMA. There's a legislative framework to ensure that Manitobans with disabilities have accessibility in our province that everybody deserves and has demanded. And the NDP was working with the community to ensure that AMA was strengthened and that it did what it was intended to do. And unfortunately, like I said, it's been weakened and watered down. And I think that a really good point is that there aren't a lot of businesses that do understand what their responsibilities are in respect of AMA. And unfortunately, we find that a lot with government programs because there's not really a public awareness campaign. And so the Manitoba NDP will work in partnership and in respect of consultation and how AMA can be strengthened. And under a WAB-CANU NDP administration, provincial government departments and agencies will prepare, update.
Thank you, Nahani Fontaine.